As we head to the Big East tournament, is this 4-game winning streak fool's gold? Are we fooling ourselves, or is UConn peaking at the right time? You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate all of your support. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world, and we're thrilled to bring you the coverage you deserve. Today's episode is brought to you by Intuit TurboTax. Ready for stress-free taxes, the most money back guaranteed? Head over to TurboTax.com today and get money matched with your expert. All right, is UConn peaking at the right time? Well, we're going to get into that, but before we do, few players in UConn history embody the spirit of a true of this competitor, a guard from the Huskies from 87 to 91, who earned the nickname the Microwave for his ability to come off the bench and instantly ignite the offense. He played a key role in the rise of UConn basketball under Coach Jim Calhoun, helping the Huskies reach the Elite Eight in 1990 and the Sweet 16 in 1991, laying the foundation for the powerhouse program UConn would become. A UConn great on and off the court. Let's welcome in John Gwynn. And, of course, Bella's going to join us on this show today, too. All right, John, we talked pre-show, honor to have you on. But I have to ask you this question. You've been through this stuff before, Big East tournament, the day before it starts, riding on a win streak. Do we make too much of that stuff? Is this team peaking at the right time, or are fans kind of, playing around with that UConn magic a little too much?
I think they're peaking at the right time. First of all, the Big East is very tough. It's hard to win games in the Big East, whether you're on the road or home. So it's always best to be playing your best basketball in March, and they're peaking at the right time. The Big East tournament and NCAA tournament are two separate seasons. First season is the non-conference, then you get conference, then you get Big East, then you have NCAA tournament. So once you reach the Big East tournament, everybody's 0-0. It doesn't really matter what you did before in the regular season, other than seedings to know when you're going to play. Do you get buys and whatnot? So it's always best to be playing your best basketball late February into March, and I think UConn's doing that.
What's it like playing in Madison Square Garden?
It's a different feeling. I mean, it's one of the most famous arenas in the world. But when they throw the ball up, it's just a gym. You know what I mean? You have to concentrate on all the things that you practiced prior, doing some of the things that got you there. Don't do anything different, and don't let the aura and the crowd and the atmosphere grab you. You know what I mean? When the lights shine on at their brightest, you have to do the same things that got you there. So although it's an honor to play in Madison Square Garden, you can't let that grab you because that will make you do things that you haven't done all year. Do the things that got you there and that made you successful.
Is there one specific game since we are in Big East tournament? And last year I did this, and I had Chris Smith on, one of your teammates, and so I asked him the same question. Mm-hmm. Was there one specific game or moment in MSG that you can? There could be multiple, but if you had to pick one, what would be that? What would be that moment, and why?
For me to be when we won the Big East tournament, easily, in 90, UConn had never done that. They didn't expect us to get there. They had us picked to finish last in the preseason, and we won the whole thing. So obviously for me, it would be 1990 when we won when we not only did we win the Big East tournament, we were co-champions with Syracuse that same year. So we were picked to finish last. It was a lot different than it is right now. We were picked to finish last, and we wound up being the top seed and beating Syracuse in 1990 for the Big East championship.
Absolutely. Bella, I think you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, obviously this year UConn isn't the favorite. What is the biggest piece of advice you could give to this current UConn team to kind of light a fire under them going in with, obviously only the third seed in the tournament?
Like I said, do the things that got you there. And if you look closely at the NCAA tournament and any basketball games, what wins games are the small things. Diving for a loose ball, an entry pass into the post, so that it's not stolen. Because if that's stolen, that's 2 points. We didn't get 2 points that they get. That's a 4-point play. Making free throws, hedging and recovering properly, waiting and being patient for screens, boxing out. Those are the things that always cost teams at the end of the game. It's not a step back three or something crazy. It's the little things that no one thinks about that you have to be better than the other team. Because at this point, everybody for the most part is evenly matched. Everybody for the most part wants to win. Everybody shoots, dribbles, and passes, right? Everybody does that at a high clip. So what can we do to separate ourselves? And I would say do the little things. And I know Coach Hurley had that intact, but it is always the little things that win games. Free throws, boxing out. Those are going to be the key things that if UConn wants to advance to the championship in the Big East tournament.
Go ahead, Bella.
Do you see any differences from, the preparation that went in for obviously Coach Calhoun versus Hurley? Like, what is like that biggest difference when you see like coaching, whether it's on the sideline, whether it comes to preparation in big games? What's kind of like the biggest thing that stands out for you?
Well, coach, it's funny. Hurley is an old school coach. What I mean that he really gets after his players. I don't know if a lot of coaches can do that, especially new coaches nowadays can really get on their players the way old school coaches do. I think Rick Pitino is probably in that same mode. Coaches that have been around for a while are able to do that. But that's a good question, Bella. I would just say, in some ways, Coach Hurley is a little bit like Coach Calhoun, how he prepares and how he gets in. He challenges kids to perform at their best. And I know, in order to be great, I always tell my daughter this when I get ready for her season. In order to be great, you have to be misunderstood. Practices should be so hard that they're almost unbearable. Like almost humanly unbearable. Like the average person that would watch a practice was saying they're practicing too hard. So when the games come, it's easy. So I would just say for Coach Hurley to just prepare how you have been preparing. He's won 2 back-to-back championships that no one ever thought would happen. And although he may not have the same team talent-wise as he had 2 years ago, there's still a really, really good, solid basketball team that I would not want to play in the NCAA or Big East tournament. So to answer your question, I would say do the same thing that you've been doing all year.
John, real quick, the face you just made it made me laugh because you were talking about make the practices unbearable because we're watching that 60 minutes on Sunday and they were showing the clips of Coach Hurley in practice, and my mother-in-law is visiting with us, and she's sitting on the couch watching this man, and she's looking at the television like, what is he doing? So like it's exactly what you just said, because that is to a person who is uninitiated, if you will, just that it looks insane, and it looks to the average person like it's just not humanly possible.
I can't describe in words how hard our practices were. I can't describe those to you, especially the first week. It was words can't describe it, but that's how it has to be if you want to be the best.
I hear you. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll have John Gwynn talking about a little bit of we kind of started talking about it, but I want to talk a little bit more, get into the Calhoun versus Hurley, but I have a twist on it, and we're going to talk about it because it's going to have something to do with NIL. So I want to talk to you about that coming up after the break. This message is from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes used to be about waiting and wondering and worrying if you get any money back. Now, taxes is matching with TurboTax Expert, who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives you your taxes, their undivided attention, working on your return while you get real-time updates so you can focus on your day. an expert who gives your taxes an expert who finds every deduction possible, files every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy, all so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now, this is taxes. Get an expert now at turbotax.com. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn with Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World and our guest, John Gwynn, the great John Gwynn, the microwave. I'll tell you, John, as a personal story, like I was 7 or 8 years old when you were in college doing your thing at UConn, and my father was a huge UConn fan. So when I'm not a tall guy, I'm 5'10", 5'11". So when I would shoot jumpers in the driveway, I might have said John Gwynn a bunch of times when I would take shots, because you guys were my first influence. You know what I mean? Like, I wasn't a huge NBA guy even as a kid, even though my dad was a Celtics fan and Larry Bird guy. I just, I liked what I saw. It was just like a really cool thing.
Appreciate that.
So yeah, that's just, again, it's a big treat for me to talk to you. But we started to talk about this Calhoun versus Hurley in preparation. But I wanted to ask you this question. And I think I've asked Jim Calhoun's grandson, Sam, who's now on the beat for UConn and up at school. How do you think Jim Calhoun would handle NIL?
I don't know specifically, because he would have to handle it. I mean, it's just not going anywhere. And you're asking an old school coach how he would do if he was back then. That's difficult to answer, because he wouldn't be an old school, he would be a new school coach. You know what I mean? So all I could say is that, knowing him, I don't know if he would like it. I don't know if he would like the transfer portal. But it's difficult asking an old school coach. His mind is one way, because he wouldn't be an old school. He'd be in the new era. I would just say that Jim Calhoun just liked the way college basketball was run when he was coaching. When players stayed 4 years. But I got to be honest, man. I like staying at one school, but if they were offering crazy money for me to leave, I don't know if I would have stayed. I mean,
right? No, it's not. Yeah.
I don't know if I would have stayed. So it's hard. It's like trying to compare the NBA now to then. You can't do that. It's almost impossible. I would just say, I know Calhoun liked the old school way, and I know some coaches have retired early because they don't like how things are going. Some coaches on the men's side, I think, have left early. I would just say he would have to deal with it, but I think coach would prefer how things were when he coached in his era.
Real quick, off of that, because you just said that if you were getting offered big money, you don't know if you would have stayed. Do you ever get frustrated that this wasn't around when you were a kid, like when you were 18 to? Oh yeah, man, it would
have been great. I mean, I didn't grow up rich, but I was middle class. I went to private school. My parents both had good jobs, so money wasn't an issue for me. Again, I wasn't rich, but money wasn't ever an issue. But I wouldn't turn down $500,000 to go play somewhere else either. No one would. You know what I mean? So I kind of wish, in some form, I wish it was around when I played. But at the same time, I like being at one school too. So I know I'm in the middle, because if I was playing now and someone offered me to go to a different school with money, I would leave. All my teammates would have left, because the new norm is kids leave every year. That's just what they do, and I don't blame them.
Your daughter has utilized the transfer portal a little bit. Obviously, Nicole, I played with her for my freshman year in high school and things like that. What has her success meant to you? Because I can remember back in 2019, 2020 when we were playing and you were in the stands and things like that. And like, what is her success meant to you in college? Obviously, she just completed her last year. How much are you going to miss her on the court and her kind of carrying on your legacy?
Well, her success and watching her play has been more exciting than when I played. As you know, I've trained Nicole since she's been a little girl, and I've put her through those insane practices. I remember showing her a drill when she could have been no more than 11 years old, and I would bring a pitching wedge, a golf pitching wedge into our workouts. Anytime she drives to the basket, I take the golf club and I smack everyone back. And then one day she said, "Dad, this isn't fair. This isn't realistic." I was preparing her to play against that big girl from UCLA. I was preparing her to play against the tall girl she played against at Carolina. You know what I mean? So I'm just so proud of her. And I get on a plane every week. I went to all her games this year. I probably was on 30 or 40 planes this year with layovers. You know, I went to every game. I don't miss a game. And her success has meant the world to me. And watching her play is more exciting than when I played. You know, so when I trained, I wanted to make her better than me, and I think I've done that because she can play the point, she can play the off guard, she can score, she can pass, she can rebound. She scored more points in college than she did it in high school, more rebounds. So I can't tell you how proud I am of her. And now we're seeing about a professional career because I'm getting some feedback that she may be able to play professionally. So I can't wait to get her back home so we can get back in the gym and start training some more.
Shout out Nicole. Awesome
yes, indeed.
stuff.
I love it. That's a great call out, Bella. I appreciate it. All right. Last break, and then we're going to talk through your playing career because I want to take it back to that. I would never have you on and not talk about your playing career. And I have some very specific questions. I will have some very specific questions about that dream season. Because a buddy of mine did a audio podcast. I'm sure you know Matt Edwards did the dream season pod. And so, but I have some questions around that. And so I want to talk to you about that. And we're going to take another quick break with John Gwynn.
Okay.
Looking to optimize your nutrition this year? Factor makes eating well easy with shelf-prepared, dietitian-approved meals that are fresh, never frozen, and ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences every week, you can customize your meals to fit your lifestyle, whether it's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Plus, with Factor, even offers wholesome smoothies, breakfast, grab-and-go snacks to keep you fueled all day long. I love how Factor takes the stress out of meal planning. I recently tried their Protein Plus meals, and they were packed with flavor, kept me fueled and full throughout the day. The convenience is unbeatable. No prep, no mess, just great food in minutes. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege, 50 off, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code LOCKEDONCollege50 off at factormeals.com/lockedoncollege50 for 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. And you're back with Locked On UConn with Bella Tamano, my co-host and contributor to Hoops Capital of the World, as well as our guest, the great John Gwynn. As I said pre-break, there's no way I would have you on this show without talking about your playing career. Obviously, you can speak to all the things that are leading up to the Big East tournament, and you've done a great job of that. But if outside of maybe what you've maybe told, like I mentioned the Dream Season pod that my friend Matt Edwards has done. I don't even remember if you're featured on it. I'm sure you are. Is there something obscure that hasn't been told often that you look back on as just kind of like one of those moments that you just love and can kind of always kind of go back to in that 89-90 season?
Well, all I can think about is actually a loss. We played St. John's when they had this is when they had an insane team on campus, and we lost by 31 points.
Yep.
If you go back and look at it, I'm sure. So anyway, that was during the Christmas break. So you got to remember, in the Christmas break, everybody's home. We're the only ones on campus, and we bust down to play St. John's. We get back on the bus, come back. When we get back 2-3 in the morning, everybody's getting off the bus to go to the dorm room because the home said, "Get your effing ass in the gym." We're practicing at 2 in the morning. We practice from like 2 to 5. Listen to me. Ask anybody. I'm not 2 to 5. We practiced, and that was the year of the dream scene. That was the turning of our season. The loss. So, man, getting humiliated helps you really refocus on the small things. So that loss turned us around. I know more people will think of a win, but man, losses really help you learn, and you have to lose before you win. There's no such thing as winning. You have to go through pain before you go through victory. It's just how it works, right? So that loss is what turned our season around, but no one remembers that. No one talks about it. But if you Google it, it's in there. We lost by 31 points that year, and that was during the break. So we practiced from like 2 to 4:30, 2 to 5 in the morning because there were no classes because we were on break, right? And from that point on, when our season just turned around completely, and we dominated everybody: Georgetown, Syracuse, Seton Hall, Boston College. We ran through everybody, and once we had confidence in ourselves, we could have beaten the Lakers. So for me, that was the turning point in our season. That loss to St. John's at St. John's.
Is there a particular player that you model your game around? Because I don't know, man. Like for me, I was always taught when, especially coming off the dribble, and that was a big part of your game. Like the last dribble that you're using is the hardest dribble to kind of get some lift. Is that something that you used, or is there a specific player that you mirrored your game around?
How I got my shot like that, man, is a simple word that starts with P. It's practice. My dad saved the rim. It's in the garage now. It's all rusted now, and it's hanging up in my dad's garage. The reason he said that, he said he never seen a person practice so much. I practiced every day. I probably put up 500 to 600 shots every day. When me and my parents went to Virginia Beach on vacation, I practiced there. After games, I practiced. So I was insanely practicing all the time because I loved the game. So if I had a basketball camp, I would call it love of the game. Because if you love something, you're going to do it every single day, right? And that's what I did. Yeah. So I really didn't pattern myself after anybody. I just wanted to practice more than anybody else. And I knew that would give me my confidence. And that's how I got my shot, the way I shot it. But on a pull-up, you're supposed to use your legs. And that last dribble, as long as you square your body, and you really shoot a jump shot with your legs, more so than anything else, but for me, I really didn't pattern my game after anybody. I just practiced more than anybody, and that gave me the confidence. And you had mentioned earlier, you were saying that, you were very short. I always say, like, basketball doesn't have a height requirement. If you practice more than the other person and you get your skills better, that's always going to shine. And I use that same thing with my daughter who's in college, and Nicole. I trained her so much that anytime she's on the court with the other players, she knows that she practiced more than anybody on that court. That's how she scored 26 points last year at LSU when they were ranked number 1 in the country. I told her before the game, you practice more than Andrew Reese. You practice more. I know how good they are, but we practice more than them. Now go show them what we can do. So I think that if players get that mindset, I'm not saying play 1,000 AAU games. Play AAU games important, but you have to practice on your own by yourself. Get a rebound if you can, and hone your skills. And that's what I did to be able to get my shot the way it was. I also had to do little things because I was so small. Now I had to be herky-jerky and do little things that I could get my shot off because I was small. 6 feet is average, but it's small playing college basketball. So I did have to do little small things to get my shot off, but I always told people who are short, basketball doesn't have a height requirement.
For sure.
Now, you mentioned how your dad has the old rim that you used to practice on.
Mm-hmm.
I also read that your dad had Georgetown season tickets when you guys were growing up. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you didn't end up in a Georgetown uniform, ended up with the Huskies. Can you talk a little bit about that recruitment process? Were you ever upset that it didn't work out with Georgetown? Obviously, your UConn career was incredible. But what does it mean? What did it mean to you when you were getting recruited by Coach Jim Calhoun or whoever else was on that recruitment list?
Bella, you've done your homework. That's very impressive. You've done your homework. So here's the thing. I grew up in Maryland, went to DeMatha Catholic High School, played for a legendary coach Morgan Wooten, who's in the Hall of Fame. Only 2 high school coaches in the history of basketball in the Hall of Fame. My high school coach and Hurley. So my dad and I were very close. And my dad and I had season tickets to Georgetown games for 7-8 years. Even before Patrick Ewing got there, we went to games in McDonough Arena my whole life. I was obsessed with Georgetown. Went to the camps, knew John Thompson. I wanted to go to Georgetown so bad. But John Thompson did not recruit players out of DeMatha because he and my high school coach had some feud where they didn't get along. something that happened when John Thompson coached in high school. I don't know what it was. So I was playing for the #1 ranked team in the nation in high school, the nation, and he didn't recruit me. So I couldn't wait forever, but I wanted to play in the Big East. Everybody from DeMatha went ACC, Carolina, Duke. I was the Big East guy because me and my dad had season tickets to Georgetown games. So I saw Villanova, Chris Mullen with St. John, Ed Pinkney with Villanova, John Pannone, all these great players. So I wanted to play in the Big East. So my visit to UConn went very well. And if you look, I had my best game against Georgetown because I held that fake anger. I can't stand them now. So I had my best games against Georgetown because I wanted it to go there so bad. But then, Bella, for you to find that, Bella, you must have done your homework because not a lot of people know that how bad I wanted to go to Georgetown. But it's a story behind it because my dad and I had season tickets for so long for Georgetown games.
Yeah, and go ahead, keep going, Bella.
Well, I was just gonna say, obviously, we're glad that you ended up in Connecticut and everything like that. I was going to touch on a story that I was told earlier in your career. I was told this story by my dad. I want you to verify it and kind of say your piece on it.
Okay.
Early on in your career, I heard that you had to play in some intramural basketball games at UConn.
Mm-hmm.
I'm told that you and your buddies dropped I'm told that you alone dropped 50, 60 points in an intramural game. Can you walk me through that? I heard that the gym was packed. I heard that it was just one of the best times. Everybody came to watch John Gwynn and company fall out.
I was a freshman. Not many people knew me, and I wanted to play. I love playing, and I had close to 70. But I was playing against students, they weren't really on the team. They were good players. So I was just out there to have fun, and it was packed because they heard it. Man, how you find this out? This is crazy. How do you find it? It was in the old Geyer gym because there was no Gamble back then.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Gamble was a parking lot. So there was no Gamble. We going way back. So yeah, it was in Geyer, the old Geyer gym, and I had almost 70 points. And it was packed. People were standing around. Oh my God, this guy coming to UConn. I was a freshman. But first of all, I don't know how you found that story because that was 1987. I don't know how you found that. But yeah, it's true. I wish I had some footage of that, but I was playing against students and it was all in fun.
Hey, 70 points is 70 points. So that says a lot.
Yeah.
I have a picture I want to put up here. It's loading right now, but when we do it, you have to give me what you were thinking and what is this? What does this say?
Oh my God. Yeah, man. When I look at that, I just see pure joy, excitement, happiness. That's the reason why you play. That's the reason why you practice is to win the championship. And on top of that, when they don't say that you are as good as you are, they have you pick last and you prove them wrong. That's that feeling that I didn't know I was going to do that, man. I was kind of crazy. I didn't know I was going to do that. I was just so happy. I don't want to get – every player has a few seconds to cut the net and get down. They had to drag me down. I did not want to come down off that run. They had to pull up my legs and, hey, John, come down. It's somebody else's turn. But just pure joy and excitement and happiness.
Yeah, that one is pretty famous. I actually was able to grab that one pretty easily. But
right.
Last thing, and I know we're having some fun and Bella, some phenomenal stories to kind of, especially I love the intramural story. It's a great one. I have a question about this, because not a ton of people know this. During that Big East season in 89-90, they had this. I don't know what you called it, but it was a six foul rule in the Big East just for conference games, right? Mm-hmm. And I think they were exploring whether they were going to go with that, and the Big East was using it for the season. Did the coaching staff use the press to their advantage during that 6 foul season, just to say, we have this incredibly gifted athletic team that is, is just everywhere stealing the ball and is going to attack the teams that they play? Was that done by design, or was the press install going to happen whether you had 5 fouls or not?
That's a good question. The press was going to happen whether we had 5 fouls or not, because of the player that we had Nadav, myself, Tate. So if it was 6 fouls or 2 fouls, he was going to use that because that particular team, our greatness was our press, and that's why we were so successful. That's a good question. You know what, man? That's an awesome question because I've forgotten about that. It was a short period of time when they were experimenting with it. Yeah, I have forgotten about that, where they were experimenting with that. But Coach was going to use that press for that particular team a lot. Now, maybe there were some teams prior or after where you may not want to use it that much, but we had Nadav Hennefeld, Lyman DePriest, Scott Burrell's athletic ability was off the charts. Tate Jordan was a true point guard. Smitty was the best guard I've ever played with. Myself, Rod Sellers was a great low post player, could score on anybody, could rebound. And we were tough, we were hungry, and we felt disrespected. That's a perfect storm right there. You know what I mean? That's a perfect storm when no one expects you. We didn't get many press clippings, and we were hungry. But I have forgotten about that. They did experiment for a short period of time, but we would have used that press regardless if we had 6 fouls or 2 or 3.
Fair enough. This is another one. You guys beat the Russian national team in a scrimmage. A team that they beat UNLV pretty easily. Hypothetical question. Listen, I can't imagine what the Elite Eight loss to Duke means to you. But if you do win that game and you get to a Final Four, hypothetically, could this UConn team have taken care of UNLV? And how do you think the coaching staff would have schemed it up against that UNLV? Because that is the team that you're going to have to beat to win a national championship.
Well, I'm not going to say even at 55, almost 56, anybody can beat us. But we would have had to play damn near perfect game because they were good. If anybody remembers how good that team was, man, they had almost a pro team. But they could be beat. And I think Duke beat them either that year or the year after. So
year after,
So, and the way we were playing, we could have beaten anybody. So of course, I think that we could have beaten them. But honestly, we would have had to play almost a perfect game, which we could have done. But that's how good UNLV was. They were totally awesome.
Fair enough. Bella, you got any more? Because we're gonna let John go here in a second.
I think this was just such a cool experience and things like this. What does it mean to you, like this new like resurgence? Obviously, UConn had a little bit of a dry spell after that 2014 national championship win. What have these last 2 championships kind of meant to you? And like, I think one thing that my mom always says, my mom went to UConn, I think she went from 91 to 95. So just after we graduated, but she's always like, once a Husky, always a Husky. Like, I feel like everybody takes pride in UConn. You wanted to go to Georgetown, you ended up in UConn, but what does it mean to you that you like, what is going to UConn mean to you now that they're finally that blue blood school, what you knew all along, now they finally gave us that time.
Yeah. It just makes me proud to see the team play as well as they have playing. It makes me proud. I went to the Final Four last year with all my teammates, and it made me proud. The players that are on the team now obviously weren't born when I played. Actually, their parents probably hadn't even met yet. I've been gone for so long, but I'm just proud to see the kind of recruits that they're getting. I'm proud to see how the campus has grown. My oldest daughter, Alexis, she graduated from UConn, is doing great now with her life. So I'm just happy to just see how the university has grown, how the school has grown. As you know, when you go up to downtown UConn, it was just Store 24 and Wawa now. And now it looks like Blueback Square in West Hartford. The campus has grown, the school has grown. And I'm just proud of the athletic department, and I'm proud of the university as a whole.
All right, John, I have one last question for you, and then we're going to get out of here.
Yes, sir.
If you could play one more game at UConn, who would you want it to be against?
Georgetown.
I knew it, but I had to ask.
Georgetown, and I'm going to need about 15 to 20 shots. At 56, I'm going to have to come off some screens, man. I can't get by anybody anymore. I'm in good shape, but I can't get by anybody. But I can still score double figures.
All right. Well, listen. Then that means you need that Luke Murray, Dan Hurley offense to kind of get you some action and get
there
open.
You go.
So I think we could make that happen.
There you
All
go.
right, well, listen, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Bella, great. Bella got John on, so we got to give her a ton of credit.
Yes, you did.
Thank you so much for making it happen, John. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Bella. Anytime for you. Anything for you, Bella. You're Nicole's friend, so anything for you, Bella, I'll do.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right.
Well, again, this has been another episode of Locked On UConn. Remember to stay locked in, stay connected, and make sure their toughness meters are always rising. Go Huskies.
Go Huskies.